Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech Productions. Today I have Bankrupt joined again by Jimmy and Fluff.
He's really going hard with the YouTube voice today.
Yeah, he is. What's going on, beautiful people?
And today's matchup is Jimmy versus Fluff. Fluff has brought back Helku, while Jimmy's brought out Mutant Machine, General Rilldo.
Rodildo.
Yeah, that's the one, yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting matchup. We got yellow on red, but not just that, but also you were able to get a couple of the champion cards, so we kind of get a new take on this deck. I think when you mentioned when we did the profile that we will see a new variation when you got those, and so we're going to see it today in action. So there's buttons. Feel free to click them. They're there for a reason. Let's get into today's matchup.
Yep. And to mention, we did not get a profile of this exact build. I'm still waiting on 2 more of the one-drop baby promos for the deck that I really want to build using this leader. But you will see the Super Sigmas in the baby variation of this list as well, which we will certainly profile on the channel.
And I think people want Fluff's Helku as well, actually.
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get that soon.
Out of all of the matches that I could have had this night, I was most worried about this particular matchup. Fluff is a very, very strong yellow player. He's very good at holding his cards close to his chest and using them in the most opportune moments. So Rilldo is a deck where it's very defensive. You kind of lay low and then you have an explosive turn. And I was really worried about Fluff recognizing that explosive turn and just shutting it down in one go and then leaving me high and dry. So this was a matchup that I was really, really worried about. And there's some plays I will try to point out through here where I either did them out of order or kind of unoptimally because I'm trying to play around what I think Fluff has.
I had no idea what General Rilldo did. And I think the comment made before the match started was like, Jimmy, give me a rundown real quick of what this deck does. And you're like, it plays cards and turns cards sideways.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yes.
Well, I didn't tell you at what points they were turned sideways. I didn't tell you if they were turned sideways because they were blocking your attacks or they were turned sideways as your life.
I was not expecting the number of blocker this deck put out. And I found that to be the second most frustrating thing about this deck. We'll go over the first most frustrating thing as we get there. But yeah, I was a little worried about this match just because I don't know. You know, you always play better against things that you don't know. I did go ahead and awaken myself a little early here just to go ahead and get on the backside so I can start getting the draw 2 on the swing.
Mm-hmm.
I did play the Goku a little. I won't say he's premature because the 20k double strike is going to be relevant in this matchup, especially while you don't have a blocker on the field.
Yeah, that Goku has just always been very scary to me, and also looking down the double barrel here was a little scary. But just looking at the cards in your energy, I was really, really scared. I don't run a lot of negates that cost energy. They always have like alternative options to pay for them. But I do one that was going to be very important, does cost 1 energy. So I was very worried about a absolute annihilation coming out, and then also the slug with my leader not inherently drawing. The only way I get a draw from a leader skill is when I EX evolve or Union Fuge.
Yeah.
So if that slug comes down, it cuts off my draws off of all of my Super Sigmas, my Rildos, my Planet M2s, my Baby Unison, all of my 1-drops, either search and add a card to my hand or draw a card. So it basically turns off these skills on 90% of the cards in the deck.
I think one of the mistakes that I made early in the match was I overvalued these 20k double strikers in this match, where I think had I charged one of those, kept the absolute annihilation in my hand, and made it more difficult for you to activate your extra cards, I think that would have been better long term than using these, because I didn't even I knew you played the Baby Unison, but it wasn't registering in my head how disruptive this Baby Unison actually is. So for anyone that doesn't know, if the Baby Unison were to lose a marker, it can get rid of one of the cards under itself instead. So it's almost not even worth putting attacks into it.
Unless you have a way of removing markers by skill without having to proc the permanent ability, it's pretty much going to stick on the field for a long time. And you do see I run the GT Trio in this list, which also gives it a marker, and essentially gives it 2 markers in this matchup, because it gives another card I can sack from under the Unison. Which usually I don't like doing that, because I like having that loaded and that always be an option. Just slam that and get the triple attack on it. But it buffs up the Baby Unison and essentially just gives it 2 extra markers.
Yep.
I did drop the new promo Super Sigma Triple Threat, I believe is the name, and it really adds a new dynamic to the 1-drops. So the other Super Sigma that is in play has a activate battle for 2, which is kind of nice. That you can play it from combining the mechs or your 1-drops from the field or hand, which is nice, but not particularly great, because you have to commit cards to the field or commit cards from your hand, and that's up to 3 cards just to put out a 20k blocker. Of course, it does draw on Nega Field 10, which is fantastic, but I feel that the Super Sigma promo is a lot nicer, because it will stack the 3 robots from the drop area under him, neg something 15, draw you a card, and then you have a 20k crit on top of it.
Yeah.
You cleared it. It didn't get to shine all that much, but it's a 1 energy investment, and at worst, it's a 1 energy draw next something 15k, because you did tap it when it come in. But it adds another dynamic to the deck that gives it a little aggro push, because there's a lot of these cards that you don't want to turn sideways because you want to block with them.
Yeah.
Which I think it's a fantastic addition to the deck, and if you're planning on playing Rilldo and do not have them, I highly suggest trying them out.
I at this point was starting to feel a little bit more in control of the game. I understood that I was probably going to lose. I was definitely going to lose one of my battle cards to Baby here, which I'm okay with. That's just kind of the toll that Baby puts on the field. I wasn't worried about dying here at all. But I wasn't sure what you had defensively to kind of protect moving forward. I'm kind of ready to maybe push for a kill on my following turn because of the quality of cards in my hand. And the hand differential is adding up at this point, where I think I have a lead on you in hand advantage.
I believe so.
And I've got you down to, I believe I've got you to 3 life. And I'm ready to push to end the game, but I'm not expecting how defensive this Rilldo deck is.
Rilldo is really good at just turning on a dime from being or from having nothing on field to having a absolute monster on field that you just have to get over.
Yeah.
And plus the small defensive things within this list, stuff like the Mechanized Planet is an activate battle neg something by 1,000, which sounds bad, but when you can win a battle in this game by an inch or a mile, which is fantastic. Plus, the Baby Unison will give you a leader card, a plus 1,000, making it essentially a 20k defender. Because your opponent, if they're swinging with a 15k, is going to have to combo an additional card, which is not that big of a deal, because your leader gets a buff, and then you have your 20k battle cards. So it's not super relevant, but it is nice to have. And another thing to talk about on the new promo Super Sigma is that it does stack the 3 under. So normally your leader card is going to cannibalize the 3 out from under a Super Sigma to awaken early, and then utilize it for its activate battle. But being able to, and also the Violent Ray here was very, very nice.
Can we do a fluff own count and add a ticker to it every time Jimmy activates Violent Ray this match?
I'm sure Bancroft will not do that. But being able to stack 3 under the Super Sigma, putting 4 battle cards on field, putting your 5-drop Rilldo on top, making it 5, and then being able to put the 7-drop on top of that. If you don't know what the 7-drop does, is that it has an activate battle that you can, if it's your opponent's turn, you pitch 1 card out from under it, restand it. The card does lose 5k, but you could get to block with it again. So if you manage and like calculate your opponent's attack order, in scaling on their battle power, you could block with that card for just absolute days, and you're gonna have a lot of fodder to keep restanding. Where normally when you'd put the card out, you would only have 3 or so cards to be able to pitch out from under it. But having
usually that would come in incredibly handy, but you just didn't need it here. You just had the Violent Ray, and everything in my deck is 20k. So even if I put out a Slug, I can't turn the Slug sideways. If I put out another Goku, I can't put the Goku sideways. If I put out the Dragon Fist Goku, I can't turn it sideways. So I'm literally just spending energy to put blockers on the field. And that's all I have. But the blockers are just going to get cannibalized by your baby. So it's kind of a like, do I even waste my energy? It feels so bad to waste energy on cards that can't do anything. So I don't really spend my energy, and I just pass my turn and go into defensive state and hoping that I get a window for a crackback.
And around this point in the game, I am getting a little bit worried about my deck size, because the amount of draws that you get in this deck, it really catches up on you into like turn 4 and 5, where you're like, well, like this deck's getting a little thin. And I was worried with this being yellow, if you kept me under some sort of lock or was tapping down all of my aggressors, I was a little worried that you could deck me out in this match. And of course, Robotic Propose being one of those cards.
We'll say we did play, and I noticed that as well. I'm like, can I deck Jimmy out?
Like, usually, like, I'll once I get down to a certain amount in the deck, I'm like, okay, I need to start like stepping on the gas here.
I didn't feel confident in my ability to deck him out, where Jimmy is not turning those blockers sideways. I just can't get rid of them. Like, I have to force those cards to go sideways to get rid of them in this deck. So I kind of am having to play a weird turn. And again, this turn, Fluff owned count number 2, he puts me under Violent Ray for the second turn in a row. And I think in this turn, I just pass with 5 energy open. I spent energy trying to get rid of what I could and draw what I could.
Yeah. And I forgot what happened there, but
when I activated the Android 13 effect, I kept putting them down in the wrong order. For some reason, like, I thought I had them in the right order, and I kept putting them down in the wrong order. And so when I went to go flip the card, I kept noticing it wasn't the card that I wanted to hit. Doesn't matter anyway. I lost the card as soon as I played it. So the Videl put in a lot of good work this match.
The Videl is a card that it seems like when I play this deck, I draw into the Videl like on my like turn 5, and I forget that it's in the deck, and then like I draw into all 3 of them. I'm like, well, they're not putting a single card on field without it getting negged out. Um, and at that point, it's really nice because the Baby Unison's usually pretty stacked. Like, I'm not worrying about having to Spirit Boost. But this deck, maybe it's just the way that I've played and got like lucky with my draws in it. But I feel like the early game is very stacked on Machine Mutants. I'm only hitting Machine Mutants out of my deck. I'm only seeing like Rildos and Super Sigmas. But then in the late game, once I've filtered out all of those Machine Mutants, I'm just getting like my straight gas cards. So I'm seeing my King Piccolos. I'm seeing my Videls, my Violent Rays.
It's very Trunks Vegeta in that way. Where Trunks Vegeta, you're not really drawing a lot of other cards. But by the time you get into the late turn, every draw is a fire card. Here, I'm just comboing up so I don't have to take the double strike there. I know my ability to defend myself is diminishing, but I have to try to be able to stop somewhere. Like, I have to stop the hemorrhaging here or there.
Yeah, it did feel bad turning my 30k blocker sideways. I can restand it, and then I do have the 5-drop blocker in play as well. So I don't feel too bad about tapping him down in that manner. Also saying that I do still have a Violent Ray in hand. I've seen all 3 of mine in this match. Which this time
there's
you
number
came prepared.
3. But I finally drew into a cooler, which sucks because I would have just preferred you not have a Violent Ray there.
And here we had like a little jump where I was like thinking about blocking and you jumped on the combo, which was nice knowing that was in your hand, but was a little scary. But I think it worked out better because you probably would have wanted to throw that combo on said Goku.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't KO 2 cards when I did the Spirit Boost.
Yeah. And we did catch this here that it is a 7 or less. For some reason in my head, I was thinking that it was like it didn't include 7. But we did catch that, and I ended up testing the op on that.
And then you have a blocker token, so that's pretty much going to seal the game up there. I'm pretty well tapped out here. I don't really have any other recourse. I am going to put the secret rare on the field. The secret rare is going to tap something on entry if it can. And draw me a card. Hopefully it's something that I can defend myself with. You've got another blocker negate. So it's just really hard to play against a wall of blockers, 3 Violent Rays, and then 2 blocker negates. And so I just gentleman scoop at that point because I know there's no way that I'm going to survive the onslaught.
I'm really curious as to like if we were to do this match again, how much different would it be knowing the importance of his cards on play draws mixed with that SS4 Goku as well.
Yeah.
I assume we would have seen more of those being established.
Yes. I would have much more prioritized those and probably wouldn't have charged them over the course of my first 2 turns.
And now knowing that Fluff knows that, I'm going to put much more focus on putting battle cards on field to swing into said cards because, at least for the slug, it has to be in rest mode.
Yeah.
Which I would like to maybe. I know you've kind of toyed around with like putting this deck down, but I might be interested in a rematch eventually. To see how that dynamic would flow.
I'm still playing around, figuring out where my headspace is in the game. But I do want to make a couple changes to Helku. I think it's ready to be profiled, but I also think that there are changes that can go on ahead and happen, like taking the slug package and putting the slug packages in the sideboard and bringing pieces in the sideboard into the main deck to shore it up against a wider variety of decks.
So with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Keep in mind, there's buttons down below and on the screen. Fluff does the outro.
Yeah, of course. As always, read your cards, know your plays. Let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to, and fluff out.